Okay, so we continue learning Shemiras Shabbos. We're in the middle of Sif Tes Vav. Smack in the middle of Sif Tes Vav. We're up to Gam Davar Yavish Mavushal Kol Tsarkoi. Also a Davar Yavish that is fully cooked. Smack in the middle of Tes Vav on page Vav. Vafilu Utzainin Ligamri. So we have a freezing cold Davar Yavish. We have a kugel from the fridge. Mutter Lahanicha Yisamach Leish. You let her place it near a fire. Even if it can get hot enough, that's going to be hard to let this by. Okay, now. You can put a davar yavish into kli rishon on the fire. Even if it gets hot enough to be hard to let this by. Aval, however, do not place a dry item near a fire. Let this by. Or on top of a blech. When? If there's a chashash that is going to be yitzleh, that is going to literally fry. So you have to get the sech samachtas, but he just said something a little bit difficult. He just said, when I have a davar yavish and I'm heating it up, it's mutter. Even though it's going to get hotter than yatzleh this way. Why is it mutter? Because Ein Bishul Achar Bishul. Thank you. It's already cooked. Ein Bishul Achar Bishul. It's going to get all the way to Yatzaled this by. It doesn't. Everything okay, sir? Just making noise, or you're trying to shut the blinds. Thank you. It's going to get to Yatzaled this by. We don't care. It's mutter. Unless there's a chashash tzliya. So it's something that we're going to deal with at the end just to understand the question, what is the difference between Bishul and Sli? Bishul is a wet cooking process. Tzli is a dry cooking process. So now, when I take my kugel, and my kugel is sitting on top of my blech, and it's getting to Yatzaled this way, is that called Sli? Or is that called the furthering of the Bishul? What is it? So in a kugel, you would probably say, there's internal moisture, so it's a Bishul process. And l'chayr, we would agree. But what happens when you take something like a challah that was baked, but it's not fully baked and it's getting drier and drier? Is that called a tzli process? What happens if you take a meat which is cooked, but now it's getting more cooked and dried out? Is anytime it's getting dried out a tzliya process? That's the point he's being ma'arer that we're going to have to get to. But the basic idea, you just... Maybe. He's saying there is Sli Achar Bishul. We're Machmir Yesh Sli Achar Bishul. I'm just bringing out that we're going to have to really quantify what are the cases, because everything Be'etzem is a Tzliya process. When I put my kugel on top of the blech, it's a quote-unquote Tzliya process because it's a dry heat. So there obviously has to be something that's going to give, or else everything's us, right? So I'm just bringing out that's going to be the point that Amir Tashem we're going to have to get back to. Sif Tes Zayin. B'makayim Tzayrech Gadol. Tzayrech Gadol. Kigoy. L'Tzayrech Chayle. It makes sense. Oy L'Tzayrech Tinaik. A child. Why a child? Ha'arat Tzadiyat Mem Aleph. Tzarech Eikatik Chashen B'Seikan Dami. A child's needs are Chashen B'Seikan. Okay, so what are we allowed to do? Motor lahaniach Michael mevushal kol tzarkoi. Afilu lach. I have my soup from the fridge. Soup from the fridge, which is freezing cold. And your 2-year-old wants some soup. What are you going to do? So, what's the real answer? It's Shabbos. What's the real answer? Cold soup. Okay, we can't. We can tell us. You should have caught that one. Keep going. Thank you much. Anyway, so what do you do? Says the Shemiras Shabbos. Keep going. Cholav kar, cold milk, or maraka kar, or cold soup. Samoch leish. Saying b'makim sar gadol, for example, a chayil mixes or a child, you're allowed to place this item near a fire. Afilu b'makim shabai, even though in that place yuchol ischamim, it's able to get kidei sheyatzer eiser ladesbai. It's able to get there. It's mutter. Why? Hoyel ve'ein kavanah elav yisina zigdilav shiroi. What's your kavanah? Just a thought out to remove the chill. It's mutter. Ubelvad, of course. You have to be ma'akbid, you have to be careful. Asir misham lefnei she'eschaming de'she'ei yad seledis by. So what he just taught us is that there's a Gzeir Darabanan, which we mentioned many times, called Gezeiras Hefsher. That we're not allowed to play something to... You're good? Okay, should we call? No. We're not allowed to place... Someone's saying English. Shouldn't even say the words. You're not allowed to place something in an area that it could get to Yad Seledis, well, even if you plan on removing it. So again, we always remind ourselves, we have the item we're putting on, we have where we're putting in, and we have the resultant. So here, the item we're putting on really doesn't start to boil. It's freezing cold soup. So really, you shouldn't be allowed to put it anywhere near it's going to get to the bite. Then number two is where you place it. So he says samach leish. What would be another example? On top of an overturned pan, which we'll get to. So you take your chicken soup out of the fridge, and the child wants it. And the kid's not going to eat a freezing cold. So what do? You put an overturned pan on top of your blech, on top of your plata. You take the pot of chicken soup and you leave it there. If you left it there for the next 5 hours, it would get boiling hot and you'd be over. You were sure to remove it before it gets to that point. The Isser was Gezeira that you might have left it there for the child. We're being makel on that Gezeira. Absolutely beautiful. It's a separate shayla. That's a separate shayla. Hence why we said 6 times it's a massive kula. Very good. Yes, it's Gzeiras Havshir, Gzeiras Darabanan. On Gzeiras Darabanan, Remekel for a child. The kasha you really could ask, which he doesn't really answer, is in Hara Memal, if he points us to Shin Chav Ches, Sif Yud Zayin B'Ramah. Shin Chav Ches Sif Yud Zayin B'Ramah just says that a child is in a Chol Shem Maskana. What's the din of a Chol Shem Maskana? The Chol Shem Maskana, we've learned this here many times, is we're making on Dirabanans with a Shinoi. So there's no Shinoi happening over here. So he's clearly learning, and he doesn't really explain. He just quotes over here a Chayadam that is Mekel. He doesn't really explain the mechanics. He's clearly learning that it's a mechanic within the Gzeira. And we can explain it very nicely. What's the Gzeiras Hefsher? What's the Gzeira? Lamaisa, if I put my chicken soup on top of my crock pot, and I managed to sit it there, why am I not allowed to do that? The chicken soup is fully cooked. Fully cooked items don't cook again. Ein bishul achar bishul. Elamai for a liquid remach mir yish bishul achar bishul. At what point is there bishul? When it gets the Yad Seledis bite. When it doesn't get the Yad Seledis bite, it's mutter. So I say, Rabbi, I'm going to take it off before it gets the Yad Seledis bite. What's your problem? The answer is, Gezeir Darabanan. Gevaldik. When the person themselves, this is the lumdis that he's saying, when the person themselves dictate that they don't want it to be that hot lamashal, it's a child, there is a makati mekel. Now, what I just said is not fully emes. If you were paying very careful attention, you realize it can't be emes, because he's also talking about a chaylev mixas. It's not just a child. He's talking about a regular person. He's talking about, let's just blame it on the females in our lives. It's just easier that way because they're not here to defend themselves. They have a cold and they want chicken soup. Okay, chaylev mixas. They want chicken soup, gevaldik. Nothing wrong. Sounds like he'd be mekel. Why? They rather it perfectly hot, and that is the gzeira. Sounds like for some reason he's willing to be mekel on the gzeira because of a chayla. That is sif tazayin, which we will label cold soup heter. Next, sif yod zayin. When we learn hilchos refuah, the pasha says derabanan is only motor with the shini. No. Pashtas nicht. Pashtas has nothing to do with that. In refuah, we always split everything in half. We always say, okay, there's the mimarech, you're smoothing out the cream, and then there's the refuah chelik. And we say each part has to only be done with the shinui. But it sounds like he's learning it within it. It's a Chai Adam, and he doesn't quote Chai Adam says, what's that, Ger? No, that's what I said. That's only, what? What's the hecker? That's where the Xer was made. I don't understand what you're talking about. That's really good. Okay, let's continue. We'll look at this later. Sif Yod Zayin. This is our classical case. Everyone be careful. This is going to be our burning challenge. So let's listen carefully. We have 2 pots in a fire. Everything is fully cooked. This is called, I have a hot water urn which is fully cooked, and I have a chaln which is fully cooked. And my rotten is, I want to put one or the other. I want to put my hot water into my chaln. Vice versa, it would be odd. What's better? Now, if you're realizing Rav Neubert is very, very medactic, is that also Sayesh lahachmir? Toiv b'yoiser to do what? Lahasir segedir melgabish, to remove the pot from the fire. Im omnam yochel lekayim is called Tanei Chazar and Varam lahol sev chaf. If you can fulfill the rest of Tanei Chazara, it's better to take the crackwood off the fire, and then we'll do it afterwards. It's better to take the cracked wood off the fire and then put the water in. Aval, however, b'mikor so nitin adavar if it's not possible. Efshel lahakel lahaver mikdir achas l'sheineha ba'idin amedus gabe'ish. You let it go straight from one to the other, even when it is on the fire. B'tanai she'ish aleo amedus gadir shebahu machnis hainu mechos. Obviously, that's to be covered. Now, what's the story over here? If you look at Ara, Mem Gimel, Mem Dalet, Mem Hey, we're talking about the kolbai, we're talking about Hagasa. We're going to learn one more Ara in a moment. What he's saying is that if you pour something one straight to the other, you can be mekel and Hagasa. Hagasa means stirring it. Lefikach, look at his example. We see one of your pots are drying out, it's burning. You cannot remove it. Why? You can't remove it because there's no Tanai Chazara. The pot is covered, but there's no Tanai Chazara. What's the case? Let's leave the case. But there's no Tanai Chazara. The easiest way is to say, according to the Chazon Ish, she doesn't know that you could put it back with the covered flame. Whatever the case is, you don't have Tanai Chazara. Motor litzek by benachas, you can pour carefully. Shabbat. From the water in your hot water urn, straight in. You could even use a spoon or a ladle. That it has to be dry. Put it in a cup and pour it straight into the cholent that's on the flame. So first of all, let's just realize. Let's say I could be Mekayim Tanei Chazara, but it's very difficult. Clearly, it's mutter. So that's what we have to take out, as we always say. If you want to take the water and pour it in carefully, that is going to be allowed. There's some Zalman poskening. What's better is to take the cholent off and then pour it in. And Sivkat and Memvav, he explains the reason is there's no stirring when you pour water in it. There when you cover it up. Why? That kolbai, that's machmer nagasa. There's only real hagasa on an item that is fully cooked. Or to take food out of the pot. You cannot do that either. You have to pour it carefully. Because if not, you have the chashashis of the kolbai, etc., etc. Continues slowly. Pour it in slowly. 2 lines later. Shemati from Goyin from Zalman. If you pour it in slowly, it's going to be mutter. They actually say from Rav Yashav, Rav Yashav was mekel. Problem with the cooler from Rav Yashav, they say Rav Yashav was mekel with a cup. So some people that were there, Taina, what does a cup mean? Cup. And if you know that it's all take hot cups, how big are those hot cups? No, it's a 4-ounce cup. It's not a vart in quantity. The vart is if you pour that cup in, what happens? Nothing. Mashenkin, if you take a 42-ounce, one of our hot cups, and you pour that in, that can cause a real agas. So Shem Zalman is the way Rav Neubert is writing it. L'chayr is the halacha. Which one? No. I'm agreeing with you. No. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying you can't say over someone attending. Rav Yashiv said you could pour straight. L'chayr, Rav Yashiv is not arguing with this. Yeah, no, he doesn't say again. Rav Yashiv said you could pour with a cup in. So the shaila is he arguing with Shem Zalman that said you have to pour it carefully or not? So I'm suggesting l'chayr they're not arguing. L'chayr Rav Yashiv is not being more mekel. The case in Rav Yashiv, when he didn't mention to pour it slowly, he was talking about a little cup. Take a little cup of water, you pour it in. No. But Shem Zalman is just saying it, which doesn't make difference quantity. Just don't pour it fast, because you pour it fast, it could then cause a tidal wave hagas. He continues. Okay, this gets a little bit complicated within the kolbai, and he has a kasha v'chulu. Ibn Zayin, he points out, Ayin Ramosha, ve'in laser misham nitach chibur. This is our sugya. What about the fact that the heat comes up and touches your urn? Ayin kafachayim, the Indian isra v'heter lo yamin hachi. Says isra v'heter, we're not going to aser. Says Rav Neubert umihu yakbid akopon lechatchila. Okay, she'adim is the steam. She'ayat ledis by that is yat ledis by lo yaleb in akidir shel basar should not rise from the akidir shel basar v'chein lahepach ayin in your day. So he's saying you have to just be careful that the steam is not very hot, that it can hit the next level, and this is where we'll end. In Sivkat Memtes, he points out that the concern we're talking about over here is pina memecham lamecham, is that even though there's a heter of chazara to return a pot, to switch pots, is that going to be allowed? That's what he says in Sif Mentes. Lamaisa, Psak Halacha, Ram Neuber tells us there is a market to be made to pour it directly into the flame. It is better to do it off the flame. And we'll say whatever you're doing, you should do carefully so that you don't come to Agasa. And we'll pick it up from here. B'siyata Dishmai.